It's not every day a team scores 9 goals in a Champions League game, but Bayern Munich did just that. A day after I said that Barcelona were the best attacking team in Europe, Bayern Munich produced a performance which makes that statement look a little bit silly. I still stand by my previous statement, but when there's examples like this, it does, throw the entire discussion up in the air. And I will say, full credit to Bayern Munich. They took advantage, they were ruthless, and they just ripped through Dinamo Zagreb. But when a result happens where a team scores 9, I think it becomes less about the attacking team and more about the defending team, which is the way I view it, and maybe that isn't fair. But do Bayern Munich have fantastic attacking players that can rip teams open? Of course they do. That shouldn't shock anyone. Musiala, Kane, Elise, Gnabry, Kimmich, and the attacking nature of the fullbacks, that's attacking quality right there. But a team should not be so easy to play against, so easy to break down that they concede 9. And look, there was 3 penalties there. I thought the handball one was a little bit harsh. I thought the other 2 were blatant penalties. But it wasn't even just that. It was the times that Gnabry was called offside, which happened a few times throughout the game, not timing his runs that could have made it even worse. There was chances galore. So it wasn't as if there was 9 goals and Bayern Munich were just extremely clinical. It was a battering, and the amount of space given from Dinamo Zagreb, especially in that front 5. The back 5 I feel a little bit sorry for. I'm not saying they played well. They were a bit all over the place and they lost their individual battles, but the midfield 3 and the front 2, hang your head in shame. An atrocious effort defensively, I thought. Maybe leaving out Misic in the holding midfield role, the number 27. I felt like he was a bit overloaded, and I felt like there was at least some effort to try and plug some gaps, but everything else, or nowhere near good enough. And I guess we'll just start right from the build-up phase for Bayern Munich. So Bayern's initial build-up phase being a 2-4-4 that would quickly move into their more attacking phase, which was a 3-2-5, 2-3-5, or a 3-1-6. And the front 3, I assume the idea was man-to-man, but they couldn't ever really get close to the man, so it would be Batshuayi coming out to Guerrero, Piazza coming into Upamecano, and Petkovic coming in. But again, no intensity. It was really poor. Petkovic, I feel like getting caught in these weird zones of being a striker or being a winger. His positioning never really made any type of sense. You'd get Rog coming up, who would, I assume, Mark Kimmich or Pavlovic, whoever was shown deep for the ball. And this left Misic in a lot of space in his holding midfield role. And this is why I'm going to give him a little bit of a bly and be a little bit sympathetic towards him, because he was left on his own on an island at points. And it happened in the second half where eventually they started bringing up the fullback to mark the Bayern Munich fullbacks, and the defence would shift across and form into a back 4, but it was a bit too little too late by that point. It just became damage limitations. And then the front 3 just couldn't get near, and there were countless points where they'd be pulled over to this side of the pitch. And without any real intensity or pressure on the ball, Bayern could use their numerical advantage of the back 6 and quickly play it over to Alphonso Davies, who could then look to start attacking and really push this Bayern Munich shape into what it became. Guerrero would move up as well, either inside or outside of Elise, and Davis's and Guerrero's positioning was sort of dependent on where Elise and Gnabry found themselves at that point. And as a result, this would then turn it into a sort of 3-1-6, as Kimmich would come out to this right back position of Mencano and Kim in this area, Pavlovic as the centre. And to be fair, it could turn from what you see now, which is the 3-1-6, into more of a sort of 2-3-2-3, with Harry Kane dropping into this left back position, Alphonso Davies staying a little bit more reserved, could even be Musiala coming up into this position. And so there'd be rotations within it, and maybe sometimes even Kimmich or Pavlovic could and Guerrero could drop in. If not, it just meant that Kim could move into this position here, which would bring over Petkovic, Piazza, and Batshuayi, turn into that sort of 3 in the pressing stage. Misic and Rog would stay a little bit further back, but again, they were so outnumbered, and it was just so weirdly disjointed. And the back 5 would try and engage. They would try and press high to get against the Bayern Munich players, but to no real avail. Like you'd get Rostovsky that would try and press out into this area here. TFL Catherine would try and man mark Harry Kane, and if they tried to build up on the right hand side, then the left centre back could come and press the player that's in between the lines in the half space to try and prevent him from getting on the ball. But I will say the real magic in this system came from one player, and that player is this little guy known as Jamal Musiala. And Jamal Musiala, I thought, did a fantastic job of providing overloads on either side, and he was right-sided, he was left-sided, wherever the action was, he got on the ball to pick it up. And he worked well with Harry Kane in the wide overload. So Harry Kane would be pinning back the central centre-back in TFL Catherine, take this front four out of the game. As I say, their work off the ball was non-existent, and at points it felt like Misic just got pulled into areas like this. And sometimes on this right-hand side for Dinamo Zagreb, if the right wing back got pulled out to Gnabry, he would fill in this space here to just try and block any underlapping runs from Davis, because we know how quick he is and how much he'll look to get him beyond the back line and receive balls from deeper areas. But Musiala coming into this position here, and again, mirror this on the right hand side, it's the exact same. Davies and Gnabry pinning these guys back, with Musiala running at the back line with tenacity, with aggressiveness, looking to create from this area here where Davis could move in behind, where Gnabry could as well, and then maybe this created either the pass into Harry Kane, or with the movements dragging the defensive line down, it would cause the entire Zagreb defence to cover around, coming all the way over to here. Let's say Harry Kane and Guerrero making these movements in here. Musiala could switch, play the ball over to Elise, who then had more space to attack on that right-hand side. And I will say, I thought Pavlovic did a fantastic job of just providing that link between these areas. If he needed to come in a little bit further and get on the ball, just to provide that extra layer of quality to switch the play from side to side, he would, no questions asked, and he did a really good and safe job of it. And this is where the issue, I feel, it really came from. With that overload of the six in between the lines, in the big gaping lines between the attacking lines and the defensive line, there was always a player extra for Bayern that Zagreb couldn't deal with. So there's the long switch, which I spoke about, which they found a number of times. But then there were also times, especially for the Guerrero goal and the second goal, where runners would happen, and the vertical movements from these Bayern Munich players to get on the ball in these positions, to create angles, to cause this back five to make decisions that could open up space, well, was huge. And so let's just say if Musiala in this position here, Kane would make this movement into this area here that would maybe drag TFL Catherine, Guerrero and Elise then attacking the inside. Guerrero attacking that space then leaves an issue for the left centre-back. Does he cover around, or does he stay with Elise? So space just opened up in between the lines always, and there was overloads that Zagreb just could not deal with. And also, there'd just be such simple ways that Bayern could open it up quickly with easy little movements, where Kim could play this ball to Gnabry, who would drop in a little bit deeper. He'd drag the right wing back up into this area. Davis could make an underlapping run that would drag this player into this position here, or maybe force Misic back into this area. And then Kane could drop into this area here to get on the ball and receive an easy pass for Gnabry in space around that Dynamo Zagreb two-man midfielder he could create, or maybe Musiala could come across, or Pavlovic could show for the ball. And Kane then getting on the ball in this position here has the quality to find Musiala maybe making that run. Especially if TFL Catherine's come up to press him in these areas, Musiala could run off of him. And again, the overloads in between the defensive players for Zagreb opened up again. And the three just didn't drop back. Petkovic, Piazza, Batrina, just non-factors in these defensive shapes for Zagreb. Even so much so that when the ball did go to the back line, Bayern Munich had no issue with Kimmich and Pavlovic both coming inside, Upamecano spreading wide, as well as Kim and Neuer coming into this area high up the pitch to contribute to beating the press for Bayern Munich against Zagreb. And I use the term press loosely. Sharp vertical movements from the attacking players. Let's say Guerrero dropping in here, one-touch passes around the corner, Musiala running in behind, and just so many ways they could exploit that back five. And when it was in the more sustained and in the more rigid phases where they would attack with this 3-1-6 Bayern Munich, then you'd see situations where even maybe Gnabry would come into the central striker position to sort of play off the edge of the defence and run off the shoulder of the last man to find space and behind. Kane could drop in between the lines, just because we know obviously how technically good is receiving the ball in these deeper areas. And you could see sort of situations like this with the 2-6. And again, vertical movements trying to disrupt that back line of Zagreb, Guerrero coming into this area here, maybe forcing the left centre-back back, creating space for others. And even this left centre-back committing into these positions here to get close to Guerrero, as the left-back would be focused on Elise. Kane would do a really good job running off the edge of TFL Catherine, and then maybe you'd get Kane just being used as a decoy, pinning TFL Catherine back. So Musiala could make movements into this area here to receive the ball in behind. Again, just so many ways they could open this Zagreb team up. They couldn't have made it any easier if they tried. I mean, you might have even convinced me that they tried to make it as easy for them as they can. And off the ball for Bayern Munich, I'll mention it for a couple of minutes. I know they conceded 2 goals. And look, in another game, if you were to say that maybe even going into it, that Zagreb were going to score 2 goals, you'd have thought that would have meant that they produced a pretty decent performance. Still issues with Bayern's off the ball shape. I spoke about it in a video about a month ago. And they were still alive here, man-to-man marking, where quick one-touch play from Zagreb did open them up and get them behind and exploit the defensive frailties. Again, I'm not going to talk about it too much. Bayern Munich scored 9 goals. I'm not going to completely go over the defensive issues, but Bayern would press man to man, and it just takes one player losing their marker for the entire thing to crumble like a house cards. And when they push up and they split the centre backs as much, you get Upamecano coming into the further areas to mark Piazza. You get Harry Kane dropping in at points who would mark TFL Catherine, who could sometimes find himself as the midfielder, strangely enough, when getting on the ball. So, there's many ways that it could go wrong, many just simple little exchanges of play and movements that can free a man for Zagreb to open up an attack space. So that was always going to be an issue. But again, 9 goals from Bayern Munich. Disappointing, to say the least, performance from Dinamo Zagreb. Midfield, forward line. I'll have a little bit of sympathy for the defensive line, but again, still thought there were so many rash decisions and rash moments, just so poor from the entire structure of the team. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Cheers for watching. In a bit.